Arrays are one of the most powerful and commonly used data structures in JavaScript. They let you group values to build more complex structures. Because of that, you'll find that there are many ways to work with them. Now I'll teach you some common ways to add elements to an array. Let's start by visiting one of the best sources of JavaScript documentation, the Mozilla Developer Network, or MDN. Here you'll find detailed information on every aspect of the JavaScript language, including this page on arrays. In JavaScript, an array is not only a type of data structure, an array is also considered a special kind of object that has properties and methods you can use on it. The sidebar on the left has all the properties and methods you can use with arrays. For example, you can find the length of an array or the number of elements inside it by looking at the length property. It works much like using the length property on a string to return how many characters are inside it. In this case, the length property returns the number of elements in an array. For example, if you had an array like this, you can find out the number of elements in the array like this. This returns a length value of 3, which you could, for example, display in a message. As you add elements to the array, the length changes. It's really a handy property. Now let's go back to the Mozilla Developer Network's array documentation. Notice there are lots of methods for working with arrays. For example, push is a useful method that lets you add one or more elements to the end of an array. Let's look at an example. To code along with me, first download the course folder from the link in the description below and open it with your favorite code editor. Here I'm using Visual Studio Code. From the course folder, open the exercise folder called JavaScript Arrays. And then open the index.html file in the browser. Here I'll also open the JavaScript console. In the index.html file, remember to link add.js file. In the add.js file, you'll find an array named cities holding 3 city names as a string. To add Moscow to the end of the cities array, I'll type the array's name, followed by a dot, the word push, and set of parentheses. Inside the parentheses, you include the element or value you wish to add to the end of the array. In this case, I'll add Moscow as a string value. You can think of the push method as pushing an item into the last spot of the array. I'll save the change, refresh the page. Then in the JavaScript console, I'll type cities to reference the cities array. And notice the cities array now containing 4 elements. Moscow appears at the end of the array. An array's length property automatically updates when you modify the array. With the push method, you can add more than one item to the end of the array at once. For example, I'll add the strings Berlin and London to the end of the cities array. I'll save the change, refresh the page. I'll check the array again in the console. And now it holds 6 elements. We are adding elements to the end of the array, but what if for any reason you need to add an element to the beginning of an array? JavaScript also provides the Unshift method to do just that. Now the name Unshift might seem a bit confusing, but it works much like the push method, except that it adds an element to the beginning of an array. For example, to add a city name to the beginning of the cities array, type cities dot unshift, a set of parentheses, and inside the parentheses, pass the element or value you wish to add, like the string row. And like the push method, you can add more than one element to the beginning of the array. I'll add one more. Let's say Boston. I'll save the change, refresh the page. I'll check the array again in the console. Now cities array contains 8 city names. Remember that each element in an array has an index value starting at the 0 index. So you can visualize the cities array like this. Alright, you have just practiced adding elements to an array. In the next lecture, I'll teach you how to remove elements from an array.